My name is Michael O'Donnell and I'm going to talk about the Totties, at least what I know about them.
And what do you know? Did you do it yourself?
I went over for 1 year when I was 15. I went to see what the bothies were like, and mainly to see the conditions where people lived, and especially because my three neighbours, young boys under 15, were burned, and I wanted to see where they lived and how they lived, and kind of to get a feel of what actually happened.
And were you not very young at 15 to be going over?
No, that was considered to be on the older side. Mostly people that would go to Scotland would go as families. The mother, possibly the father, and if he wasn't gone to England, the children, which might range from 8 years onwards. And I know of one family where there were 6 in the family. The oldest was 18. The mother and father were here, couldn't go. But the oldest member was 18 and the youngest member was 9.
And what did you think when you got over to Scotland? First of all, what was it like leaving home? Well, you went with your family, did you?
No, when I went to Scotland, I went on my own. It was with my friends.
The friends, okay.
Yeah, we were a group from around. We weren't lonely because we actually knew the people that we were going with. It was sad that we did have to go though, and that you had to leave Ireland and that you didn't have work in Ireland. That was the sad thing. And that prompted the song that I wrote about the totty hawkers in Scotland, where you were leaving your home, you know. And
what kind of accommodation did you go into?
You went into a barn. The farmers would clean out the barn, take out their cattle, whitewash it mainly with lime. It was clean. I never felt the cold, to tell you the truth. I don't remember ever being cold in it.
And what time of the year did you go?
You went in June,
yeah,
and you came home in November when the crops were in. There were people that stayed what they called wintering out. 5 or 6 might stay for wintering out, which meant that they would be sorting potatoes and sorting out seed and getting ready for the following year. You know.
Yeah. And what was the money like?
Money we thought was good at the time.
Because you had no money here.
Yeah, when I went it was £1 a day, which was pretty good for a 15-year-old at the time, and you'd have you know, your £6 at the end of the week.
And did you have to keep yourself, or were you fed?
You had to keep yourself, but food was relatively cheap, and there was 2 what they called bothy women. They looked after the food, and they cooked your breakfast and they cooked your dinner, and they looked after everything for you. They did your washing, and they were great, you know. And they were like mothers really to everybody, including the people their own age.
And what did you eat?
Everything, any normal food, you know.
Did you have eggs and rashers for your breakfast?
Rashers, sausages, eggs, whatever was handy. There'd be fries in the morning. If you wanted to buy rashers for your breakfast, the bothy lady would have it fried for you.
But you'd have to buy them?
You'd have to buy them, yeah.
And what would you have for your lunch then?
Some merchants did buy the food, but I think they were very rare. But you could eat as much potatoes as you wanted. The potatoes were...
They were there?
Yeah. So there was all kinds of everything from what they call totty soup to mashed potato, and you know... You could
really live on that, yeah?
Yeah, oh you could, yeah.
And how many hours a day did you work?
You worked sometimes 10 hours.
10 hours?
Yeah. You get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you'd be finished around 2 or half 2 in the day.
And why would they finish at half 2 in the day?
Because you had done your 10 hours.
Okay. And what did you do for the rest of the day then, generally?
Then you, as a youngster, if you thought you could make it into town or the local village or somewhere, you walk around for a few hours and then you'd go to bed maybe around 8, 9 o'clock.
And were you having a few pints that time?
No.
You didn't drink? No?
I didn't drink. I didn't drink until I was 26 or 27.
Yeah. And the adults, did they drink?
Adults, no, they never drank. I never seen anybody drink.
So you were a very sensible group?
Well, they went to make money, and if they were going to spend it on drink, they'd be as well to stay at home.
Well, many an Irishman did.
That's true, but then they were getting a lot of money, you know.
And were there many people from Achill there?
Achill, mostly the squads came from Achill and Donegal, and Achill would beat Donegal by, I'd say, 2/3 by 1/3.
And Would you go to a dance there ever? Did you ever go to a dance there?
Never went to a Scotch hall dance, even though you would be invited by some of the Scotch girls and lads. They'd be enticing you to go. But what we had was bothy dances, and maybe a bothy close to you might have a dance on a Saturday night, and the following week or fortnight there might be one in another farm somewhere else, and then your own farm. So you could be going around the different farms and having bothy dances, which were absolutely brilliant.
And how many people would be at them?
There could be anything up to 100 people at a bothy dance.
And who's to play the music?
Mostly the gaffers were very musical, or if there was like Michael Naven now from Newport, he was the brother of the gaffer that I was with, called Martin Naven, who was an absolutely lovely man, and he played the accordion and he played for the bothy dances that I went to, plus that there was a lot of Donegal people in other squads, and they also had musicians. I didn't know who they were.
And how did you get on with the locals, generally?
Generally, brilliantly. A lot of people said that the locals were not nice, but mostly the locals that we knew were the farm hands and the local villages where you'd go in and do your shop, and they were very respectful. But there were people from the towns that might throw an insult sometimes, but not unless you were stepping out of line or something, you know. I didn't find that the Scotch people gave us any much problems.
And did many of your lads get into trouble with the police or anything like that?
In my time, when I was only there for one term, but in my time I never heard of any person ever getting into trouble. And in all the years prior to that, when we did hear about it, I have never heard of anybody getting into trouble with the police or doing anything out of the way.
And what was a typical day like now? You get up in the morning...
You get up in the morning, 4 o'clock, get your breakfast. The bothy ladies would be up before you, and they would have the food already prepared. And
you'd all go in together?
You'd all, yeah, it was a huge big room, a byre or barn for the eating end, as they used to say in the bothy. The bothy was the whole lot of it, accommodation. But you had your own table and your own bench, and you got and you sat and you had your breakfast, and then the farmer would and his farm hands would come along with their tractors. You'd get up on the tractor and go to work. You'd be brought out to the field. Sometimes the fields would be close, and sometimes the fields would be a couple of miles away. And the farms were huge. They could be up to anything from 200 acres to 600-700 acres
of potatoes.
Yeah.
And what would they do? They just dig them out, is it?
They dig them out. In my time, the hoken with the potato fork, which was a special kind of fork, and I have yet to see one in any of the hardware shops, was going out, and the mechanical machines were coming in, and the diggers were taken over, but not everywhere. And a lot of farms you did the hoken by hand, and the gaffers and that needed good diggers, good hokers, along with good pickers, you know. So it was
a hoker would loosen the soil there, is it?
A hoker would get his digging fork in behind the shaw, and he would dig the potatoes out and spread them out for the picker. And the reason that you went early was that the shaws are high in the morning, and you would have no difficulty getting down between potato shaws.
What's the shaw?
A shaw is the stalk that comes out of the tuber of the potato.
And what were the potatoes put into them? Baskets?
Into a basket. There were wire baskets in my time. There were wooden baskets, but the wooden baskets were okay in good weather, but they gathered a lot of muck and damp in when the soil was doby and wet, and maybe drizzle or something, and the ground would get wet, and then you wouldn't be able to use these baskets. There'd be a ton weight, and they'd be when the baskets then would be getting tipped, or what they call timmed, into a barrel for timming into a 100-weight sack. A lot of dirt would go in with these baskets, these wooden baskets. So they moved over to metal baskets, and that could be rattled and shook, and a
lot of the soil would come out.
Yeah, there'd be very little soil going with it then, and the potatoes were much cleaner And them wire baskets then were mainly tipped, because they were oval shaped. They were mainly tipped straight into a bag, and it done away with the use of a barrel. So the barrels were at an end really, and so was the Hoken in that year that I was there in 1959.
You were there in 59, yeah.
Yeah.
And was this popular that time? Was it busy that time?
It was, yeah.
Right.
There'd be squads from everywhere, you know. I mean, there could be 20 different squads out of this island, plus people from North Mayo, Ballacroy, Balmullet, Donegal, Dohouma, all that area there. Ballina was a big place for squads. Then Donegal, a few from Galway, but not many.
Not many, no.
Yeah.
So, what happened to potatoes then? Were they used for eating mostly? Is it, or?
Well, yeah, they were shipped. I mean, you're talking about thousands of tons of potatoes throughout Scotland, and they were getting shipped. Merchants would come. It wasn't the farmers who actually had the potatoes. They sowed the potatoes and sold the field to the farm, to the merchants, and the merchants then were the people that the gaffers worked for and the squads worked for. So the potato merchants would take away lorry loads of potatoes every day. Where they went to, nobody really knows. They went to different places. There was one outlet, one merchant who had 46 outlets for himself, and he used to have to buy potatoes from other merchants so he wouldn't go down in stock. So these kind of things could happen, you know. But the merchants, yeah, they shipped them off. They went to England, they went everywhere. Not sure.
Did many fellas marry locals over there? Or bring the ladies back here?
There was a few people who married Scotch girls, but they tended to live then in Scotland. The people from here who went to the squads usually married other Irish people, and then when the squads sort of finished in the middle 60s, although it still went on into the 80s from what I hear, mostly the men went to England and the women came here, and it was the husbands going away here from Achill for the year, and the wives and children staying at home. And it happened in my case and most people around here. The father was away, the children were at home, the mother was at home looking after the older people. And you'd see your father Christmas, Easter, August, couple of weeks at a time, usually 10 days to 2 weeks each time, and that was it until you became working age and was able to go with them, or they retired.
Okay. Any women ever go picking potatoes, no?
Yeah, this was just as many women as men.
And were there many from Achill? Women from Achill?
Yeah.
Were there, yeah?
50-50.
Never heard that before, did you?
Yeah, there's lots of women.
And were they in a different body than you, or were you sharing?
No, you went to the same bothy, but the accommodation was different. The men stayed in the men's section and the women stayed in the men's section. Hence the reason why 10 boys got burnt in Kirkintilloch, because they were separated. And a lot of people said about the Kirkintilloch disaster that it was the gaffers' bad attitude and bad ways that caused this problem by locking them in their sheds. They never locked them in. They weren't bad to them either. They were very careful with them, and they were looking after young children as young as 8 and 10 and 12 and 14 and 15. Mostly they would be over 10, and they wanted these children to come back home as safe as how they were when they left. So they weren't bad people. They were actually very good people, but they did want you to work and pay your way, as they say. And
did you have a union, no?
no, there was no union.
You didn't need one, is it?
No, and unions wouldn't be something that taught you. They weren't there long enough. It was seasonal. You wouldn't have time to even talk about a union. And there was no unions.
So you enjoyed the year you had there, yeah?
I thought it was a brilliant year.
Yeah. You learned a lot, did you?
I learned never to spend my life doing it. And it made me think a little bit different.